The shocking truth behind the Sauce Gardner trade has been revealed, as the biggest trade at the NFL trade deadline involved the best cornerback in football, and there has been a lot of questions surrounding this and also the move for the Jets to trade away Quinnen Williams, as well as they went all in on the rebuild, stockpiling assets and continuing to build for the future. However, it did come with giving away a superstar 25-year-old cornerback that has left a lot of people with a lot of questions, and now we have the answers to those questions. It has been revealed why the Jets ultimately decided to make the Sauce Gardner trade, the process that led up to it, and also more on Quinnen Williams and Gardner as well to look at, guys. But before we jump into that, if you're a part of that 71% that's not subscribed to Jets Digest, this is the place to be for New York Jets updates every single day. We have all the updates on the Jets coming at you, so you don't want to miss out on those. But let's jump right into the video, guys. There's a lot to go over, as the NFL was very much turned on its axis when Sauce Gardner was traded off the New York Jets to the Indianapolis Colts, a trade that nobody saw coming. There was no noise about Sauce Gardner and trade rumors. There never has been noise about Sauce Gardner and trade rumors, though ultimately the cornerback did get traded away from the Jets, where he had had the best start to a career that a defensive back had ever had, and it felt like he would be a long-term staple of the Jets, someone who would go down in history as one of the best players in New York Jets history, but now, ultimately, after 3.5 seasons in New York, would end up getting traded away. Now, again, none of us saw this coming. It was obviously insane to when this happened, but the Jets, they did get a very healthy package back, including 2 first-round picks, so they sold off Sauce Gardner for a whole lot of value. But still, a lot of fans are upset. A lot of fans saw Sauce Gardner, myself included, as a piece to build around for the future, not to sell off. So now when you go into the draft with those draft picks, you hope to draft a guy like him. Sauce was not old. He was 25. He had a lot of great years left and likely had not hit his prime yet. Now, he has been having 2 down years since his first 2 years in the NFL. And one of the big things here is that he was not a scheme fit for this New York Jets defense. However, or the new Jets defense we should really be talking about. But when it comes down to it, he's still Sauce, and there was a lot of questions surrounding this. Now, Zach Rosenblatt revealed that starting in Week 4, Darren, Mougey, and his staff held weekly meetings laying out the value of all their players, their trade value, how they fit into their scheme, contract, and other factors. To avoid any sort of recency bias as trade offers poured in, Mougey did not want to get into a position where he was making rash decisions based on where the team was. So while it would appear that the Jets just conducted a fire sale, Mougey doesn't view it that way. He views it as trades landing at the cross-section of value and opportunity. The Jets have 3 more first-round picks and 1 more second-round pick than they did before, and Mougey made one thing clear. Nobody is untouchable. Not anymore. For the right price, he will consider anything. And he found the right price, saying, the goal is always to win. These coaches and players work too hard every day, all day, with the goal of winning on Sunday. That never changes. That was what the fans deserve. That's what the players deserve. That's what the coaches deserve. I understand the trade deadline and the different moving parts, but the goal is always to win on Sunday, and that's what we have to work to do all week, and that's how it is. However, when you trade away a guy like Sauce Gardner, that's not exactly what we see right here. Now, Rosenblatt mentioned that when the Jets signed Gardner to a 4-year, $120 million contract over the summer, the league-wide reaction was a shock at how team-friendly it was. It was a contract lacking in guarantees, but emphasizing average per years, a metric that would allow Gardner to say he was the highest-paid cornerback in NFL history. A Jets team source at the time said that he was thrilled that Gardner was more focused on that title. It allowed them to structure it in a way that they could get out of the contract down the line if the opportunity presented itself. The reality of this trade is that Gardner was never as untouchable as he seemed. Now, if Sauce Gardner was untouchable or beloved by the coaching staff, then the Jets would have hung up the phone when the Colts called, like they did in resisting overtures for wide receiver Garrett Wilson. The Colts called around the league in search of cornerbacks for the last few weeks, according to league sources, and the Jets were one of those calls. They were curious about the Jets' cornerback room, specifically Gardner. Though Mougey wasn't interested in having a conversation unless he was bowled over, then the Colts called back this week, where everything changed for really good with the New York Jets. And as Mougey said, when it came down to the last few days, Indianapolis kept getting richer and richer with their value, and eventually it was too good to pass up. Now, Gardner, obviously, with both him and Quinnen Williams getting traded, we do see some changes now arise with this New York Jets team. I mean, look, Now their cap space grows from $19 million right now in cap space that they have. In 2026 in free agency, they'll have $94 million. 2027, they're projected at $209 million, and 2028, they're projected at $255. Now, obviously, when they sign some guys to those deals in 2026, whoever that may be, that'll impact 2027 and 2028. But right now, they do have cap space. The team does have room to really maneuver going forwards. They have no bad contracts on the book. And not saying that Sauce or Quinnen Williams was a bad contract. They were good contracts for great players. But the Jets, they wanted to reset as much as they possibly could and gain as much value as they possibly could. They used the Oklahoma City Thunder method of trade away anything for value for as many picks as possible and hit on draft picks and then use draft picks and other situations to try to get in talent. The Jets, they're doing that to a huge degree, except they have a franchise player right now in Garrett Wilson. They're not going to move Wilson unless obviously the price is a complete jaw dropper. And if that happens, then they will. But right now, it seems as if Garrett Wilson is the long-term piece for this offense while the Jets look to find a quarterback, which is their game plan. Whether that's this year, which is expected, whether it's Fernando Mendoza, who's projected to be the first overall pick, or someone else, is a big question mark. But also, don't get it twisted. Sauce Gardner is still that guy. He is that good. I mean, when we look at all the metrics, the raw PFF separation prevented, Sauce is all the way up that list and pretty high up on the on-ball grade as well. Sauce is still one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. And the Jets traded away a guy who didn't fit into their system, something they considered, and on top of that is still great and could net a ton of value for them. When that happened, the Jets ultimately found their way to success in making a move. Now, Gardner's contract did have them on the books for a lot for a defensive back, the most a defensive back has ever been paid. However, now the Jets don't even have that anymore. They don't have that contract on the books, and they get to move forwards with likely taking a rookie defensive back fairly early on in the next couple of drafts, if not more than one, and then they won't have to pay them for a slew of time. Again, the number one plan is always going to be adding a quarterback. The Jets, they know they need a quarterback. It's pretty damn simple. You get a quarterback, it changes your franchise. Rosenblatt said Gardner wanted to be a Jet for life. He said as much even as the 2024 season crumbled and the coach and the general manager who drafted him were fired. He felt that way even as criticism raged and fans focused on what he wasn't doing. Intercepting passes or consistently tackling, instead of what he was doing as well as anyone, preventing the opposing wide receivers from catching the ball. This season, among qualifying corners, Gardner was the best in the NFL in terms of snaps per reception allowed. Opposing quarterbacks rarely throw it in his direction for a reason. And again, as great as Gardner was, he wasn't turning the franchise around. Mougey saw a chance to get more picks and take a shot at a guy who could turn a franchise around. And Mougey said, when you get to the deadline, you have your value set. You're set on what these players are really worth and what you really might be willing to do to part ways with them. We got to today and we had these offers that we just felt were too good for the team. And we made that with Sauce and Quinnen. Guys, when has a team really been able to change its future without a quarterback? It doesn't happen anymore. So Mougey decided that Quinnen didn't want to be here. They got an incredible value for a guy who didn't want to be there and preferred to be traded. And then also with Gardner, they got 2 picks. They got a young wide receiver. They did get some stuff. A.D. Mitchell, someone who the Jets will actually be able to give some playing time to and see if they have some future talent with that receiver, especially after just thus far Arian Smith has been disappointing. The same thing goes for John Mechie, who they acquired. Their receiving room did get better, and yeah, their defense got a whole lot worse, but guys, their defense has sucked all season, so that's also something we have to be aware of. Yeah, it's going to take some time to rebuild the defense. Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner's don't grow on trees. I mean, Quinnen Williams is the best run stopper in football. Sauce Gardner is one of the best cornerbacks in football. The Jets are not guaranteed to be getting one of those again, but what they do need is to rebuild this, and now they have a bunch of draft picks to get guys on cheap contracts and find what works. They are banking on this draft being how they get back into relevancy. That has been what Darren Mougey has also made clear. He said they're going to look through the draft. They're going to continue to try to build through the draft, and if that works, then they're going to have success. But he wants to build through this draft. He's made that very clear, and now the Jets have a bunch of skill positions where they will be looking to going forwards. This trade, in all honesty, the more time you give it, the more things start to make sense here. Quinnen Williams is on a big deal. Now the Jets don't pay that deal. We really do see things change, and fans obviously are going to be split. With some fans saying now that it was a good deal, as much as it hurts. I mean, seeing from Luke Grant saying Darren Mougey decided that having an elite defense and an elite defensive players does not matter if you don't have a quarterback that doesn't have and don't have an offense as well. The last 10 years of my fandom make me think he's correct. I hate trading elite players, but I'm on board for his vision. And that's true. Elite defenses with bad offenses don't win anything. And the Jets, they want to build the right way and build with what's been working. As we see here, Jets GM Darren Mougey is living out the dream of every draft enthusiast in America. And then obviously the other side of things where people are saying F you, Darren Mougey. But at the end of the day, the Jets got a whole lot of assets moving forwards. Again, Sauce and Quinnen losing them hurts. It's going to sting. But again, we've seen this stuff work in the past. This is how teams build. You build through the draft. The Jets have 3 more first-round picks, another second-round pick that they didn't have prior. They also have A.D. Mitchell. They have Mougey Smith, who isn't too impressive, but he's young. You never know. At the end of the day, the Jets, they did what rebuilding teams do. They sold off players in their primes, having success for more draft capital to try to build things the right way. Bad teams don't do that. Good teams do that. I mean, should the Cleveland Browns still have Myles Garrett, or should they trade him for $1 million picks? They should trade him for $1 million picks. Are the Cleveland Browns doing that? No. Are the Cleveland Browns a good franchise? Absolutely not. Have the Jets been a good franchise? Of course not. I'm not saying that, but this is a pathway that we've seen success happen before, and I'm going to give Darren Mougey the benefit of the doubt right here because thus far, his moves have not been bad. It's just they did not build an offense this year, and that could have prevented Sauce from getting traded, but at the end of the day, the Jets need a quarterback. The best way to do that is to get one in the draft, and now they have a bunch of draft picks to try to reset this thing. I'm going to give them a chance. What do you guys think? How do you feel being a day removed from all of this? Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments down below. Have a wonderful day. Go Jets forever.